Wow, how time flies. It's been over a year since the NAR settlement that was supposedly going to shake up the real estate industry. So now that we're looking back in the rearview mirror, how have things really changed? So let's go over that today. What were the main things that were changed with the NAR settlement? Number one, if a buyer wants to hire a broker to represent them, they have to have a written agreement that explains the terms of the representation and the fee structure. That's something that prior to the NAR settlement, in Florida at least, was not very common. Some agents did BBA agreements, but now it is required before showing houses. So I think this is a very good thing because it shows transparency and it has clarity on what the agent's responsibility is to a buyer, as opposed to what we had before, which was not as much clarity. It's similar to an agreement that you have with a seller that kind of dictates exactly what your responsibilities and roles are as a seller and as a broker, and also explains what the commission structure will be. The second major change was disclosure of buyer's agent compensation on the MLS. That has been gone since August of 2024. So it creates more room for negotiations. It also creates a little more transparency. It's just something that now we have to discuss agent to agent, put it in our offers with the seller offering to pay a certain amount of commission, or if they're not offering it, then the buyer would have to ultimately pay that commission. Obviously, not every buyer would be happy with that, but how has that really played out in the real world? From our experience, the sellers are still offering buyer agent comp in most transactions. So right now we have a lot of inventory on the market in certain areas. And as a seller, you want to sell your house. And the more buyers that you get into the house, that's going to get you a higher price for your house. So offering some sort of buyer agent comp is something that we do recommend that our sellers do. You really have to check with what is in the market. What is your competition doing? You don't want to deter people, right? So at the end of the day, it's about getting the net amount of money in your pocket, the highest possible amount for a seller. In most cases, the seller is still paying part or all of the buyer's agent's compensation from the deals that we have seen. So now let's get into how has that affected home prices and valuations. We haven't really seen much impact on that. Appraisers are actually not factoring in whether or not commission was paid on the transactions. They don't have access to that information. They're looking at sales price, condition of homes, and obviously the features of the homes, but it really hasn't impacted sales prices as dramatically as people were expecting or anticipating it to be. Also, buyer's agent commissions really haven't changed based on studies by Realtor.com. They've pretty much stayed the same. There's many reasons for this. You know, agents are very used to that kind of commission structure. Sellers are used to paying that structure. So really what it's changed is just kind of the way the negotiation process goes and the paperwork, but it hasn't really tangibly changed or moved the needle on what buyer's agents are actually being paid in this current market. According to the Wall Street Journal, there is some evidence of real estate transactions that are skipping agents altogether. So that is something that is not widespread. It's generally by people that are more advanced, more experienced. However, for marketing your home and still getting the property on the MLS, and also just the expertise that comes with a really good quality real estate agent that knows what they're doing, that value is going to sell your home for a higher price. It's going to put together a more solid deal that is going to stay together. We know the pitfalls that can happen all along the transaction. A good agent will have good professionals, title companies, inspectors, lenders, all kinds of people that are going to come together and make that transaction go as smooth as possible. From the buyer side, also the same thing, understanding financing, understanding what pitfalls you can run to along the way, writing an ironclad contract that has, the most protections for you in the contract is just valuable. So I don't recommend not using an agent for anybody who's inexperienced or not very, very, very savvy in real estate. And there's no widespread trend that is happening where people are actually limiting real estate agents. Also, certain companies are, they could work for some people, but there are some companies that have different people for different parts of the transaction. I have found that that's not cohesive and not practical. You really want someone who understands every part of the transaction and has a team that's working on the whole thing, and not, one person for this, one person for that, there's a lot of disconnect that goes on with those type of situations. So anyway, so I, really with the NAR settlement, what I have noticed is we have more paperwork, more transparency for buyers. I think that's a great thing. Understanding what our responsibilities are as brokers and agents to you, understanding what the fee structure is, understanding that we're going to negotiate with the seller to, in most cases, pay most or all of the commission. And just understanding what you're getting for the value of the work that we're providing. Not all agents are created equal, so know what services they're providing, know the quality, the expertise, the experience, the agent, the team, all of that matters, just like anything else in life. But as far as in our settlement, it really hasn't affected anything except for some paperwork that we have to sign and the way that we structure some of the contracts, but it's still real estate as usual. In conclusion, the NAR settlement over a year ago really just caused a lot of confusion for consumers, buyers, sellers, agents, brokers, but it didn't really change the game that much. So it changed some paperwork, which is good for buyers. It also changed a little bit of the way we structure the contracts and their addendums, but it has not changed the way real estate sales are gonna happen and how the process is going to go from start to finish. And it hasn't really changed values of properties, and it hasn't made as much of an impact as people would have expected. Anyways, if you have any questions on this, please feel free to reach out. We're always happy to help. We would love to represent you on your next transaction.